Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. When brands are preparing to enter Chinese markets, Ashley Dudarenok tells them to assume nothing. Ashley, the founder of China-based social media marketing firms Alaris and Chozan, reminds companies not to underestimate the complexity of the nation's market. When it comes to reaching consumers in China, she suggests that foreign KPIs, benchmarks, and even best-selling product lines be left behind. In this episode of the Voice of Retail podcast, I sit down with fellow RETHINK Retail Top 100 Global Influencer Ashley Dudarenok to talk about the vast and digitally centered niches within China's retail market. Ashley sheds light on how the pandemic has shaped the retail marketing space, from aging populations to revenge consumption. We explore digital marketing calendars that are oriented around multi-day festivals, live streaming in retail, and insights on trends that might cross over into North American markets.
Very few brands are participating in all of those events because it's very expensive budget-wise. You need to advertise both inside the platform and outside the platform. You need to create a lot of content. You need to also provide benefits and discounts.
Let's listen in now. Ashley, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And here it's in the evening where you are in the morning. I believe you're in Hong Kong. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So the math is easy for me. It's just 12 hours. So it's one of the ones I actually kind of consistently get right. Well, listen, you're going to be on the main stage at Retail Council of Canada's upcoming store conference in September. And you and I share something in common. We're both on RETHINK Retail's Top 100 Global Influencers, though I think you're a little more global than I am. You're in Hong Kong. I'm in Toronto. But, typically when I interview and chat with people, the first part is a little bit about them. And I'm looking at your background and all your accomplishments. We could have a podcast just about all your accomplishments and what you've been doing and all the things you do. But let's boil it down and start there. Tell us about yourself. Give us some background. How did you get to be where you are? Let's start there.
You are too kind, Michael. A really great introduction. I'm all blushing here. So I was born in the Soviet Union in the last years of it, and very close to the China border. In fact, my hometown is about 1 hour drive from mainland China's Heilongjiang province. And I studied abroad since early on. And when I was 17, I moved to mainland China, and that's where my fascination with the country also began. I did not move to China as a, kung fu lover or, noodles lover like many other people back in the day used to. You usually had some connection with the country or the region, and then you would relocate to the country. But I basically went there because of other reasons. I had a boyfriend at the time that studied Chinese, and I felt it was fantastic to go to China together. And I observed, I was very lucky that the time was when exactly China, they basically started building these digital ecosystems and started building their social media platforms. And suddenly, internet became cheap and everybody was on smartphones. Doesn't matter whether you were a university, professor or, a guy on the street that helps you carry things from supermarket to home for 3 RMB. Everybody had a smartphone, and it was incredible to watch that. And that's where I also completed my education. I studied business and economics, and I felt that, wow, this is the place that's really going places. And I would like to stay connected with this market, understanding its people, understanding its also uniqueness, and of course, being extremely excited to see how the e-commerce and also marketing landscape is being shaped in the country.
It's such a, it's funny when you sit sometimes in North America, you say, help me understand the China customer, but it is a vast nation. Yeah. So I'm sure it's a vast oversimplification to say, help me understand the customer. We're going to do our best today to kind of have a bit of an overview, but I'm sure that's both a challenge and an opportunity that, different regions and different parts of even, different languages, right? Different dialects across what is a super vast nation. Yeah.
Absolutely. And China has, obviously it's still population-wise the largest country in the world. And China has huge regional differences. That is why there is indeed no one unique China consumer that we can kind of target. Or when we talk about broad strokes, like middle class, what is China's middle class or China's Gen Z? I mean, they are not the same. And in China, the North and the South have a huge difference as well. So the North is traditionally a bit less prosperous, and South is a lot more prosperous, and attitudes towards a lot of things are also extremely different. So the culture, the people, their attitudes are all different. But when talking about China, a lot of people right now are obviously, like in the rest of the world, looking into millennials, Gen Zs. At the same time, there is silver-haired generation in China. So China is aging at a very fast pace. So everybody's really interested because the attitude toward your retirement and what do, you don't just look after your grandkids, but you have so many other options. So these people have the money and they are changing the country's operations very significantly right now, and they are very digital. They are really, really cool. There's, of course, this female empowerment angle in China that is very, very strong. Like in the rest of the world, there are tons of pet lovers. So there are also these niche groups across the country related to pets. There are, of course, lower tier city young people, or lower tier cities, again, silver-haired generation that is extremely unique, and they constitute about 60% of Chinese netizens that you still need to focus on. Wow. There's China's singles, so all of that.
Well, I remember I was at a panel, and one of my fellow speakers said, anything you hear about China is true. And he was just saying, like, it's such a vast nation with so many things going on that you can hear a lot of different things. And you know, you talk about niches, but I'm sure your niches are in the millions. So I guess volume and scale is one of the big differences in my mind. Let's talk about Alarise. Is it that your agency? Is that am I pronouncing that?
Yay.
Alarise. Yeah. Let's talk about that. What do you do? Talk about when you established it and what services you offer. I see your impressive roster of clients from retailers to brands, but unpack that for me a bit.
Yay, absolutely. So going back to that comment that one of your friends did on the panel, I would say, yes, everything you hear about China is true, everything you hear about China is false. So that would be a more accurate statement. So do not take what you hear as is. You really need to understand it's a very complex market, and that complexity cannot be underestimated. So I would make that statement even more kind of complete by adding the second part. In terms of Alarise, actually 10 years ago, I opened an agency, and it was focused on China. I wanted to do something with China, but then it took me some time to focus on, digital, but then within digital what? And within a year, we found this positioning, which is essentially social media focus. And in China, indeed, for the past 10 years, the social media marketing, the focus on content, the focus on content creators has become so apparent. And if there is one market where it's exciting to be in the marketing field beyond compare, I believe that this is China. The same is true for e-commerce and retail in general, because things are moving so fast. And at the same time, there are so many customers that are actually implementing, right, and using your be it a new tech feature or using your mini programs if you're promoting within a certain ecosystem. That's just the scale that definitely carries you as a brand or a creator or an agency. So
I guess that scale can carry you for ill or for good or for ill if you make some mistakes, because the scale is so bad. And I've read of some missteps that brands have made, and it has tremendous application or tremendous impact, right? Because of the scale. It's not a few people who take offense. It's literally hundreds of millions of people. So I can see why you would start an agency that would brief the things you need to know and the missteps to avoid. Is that, do you spend a lot of time with your clients talking about things like unintended consequences, be careful of what you do and just understand the culture and navigate? Is that a big part of what you do and execution, or tell me about that.
So through Alarise, we do execution, and I've got another company which is called Chouzan in English, and that is the branch where we do consult and train in-house teams. So usually for in-house teams training, these are much bigger brands, right? For instance, Shiseido Group, right? Or these are the guys that, I don't know, Disneyland, etc., and Coca-Cola. So they have a lot of agencies. They have a lot of content. They have a lot of their internal staff members. But China changes so fast. We always say China has this China speed. But right now, post-COVID-19, it's China speed on steroids. So you need to stay on top of those changes. And you need to really be able to act very, very quickly. And as you said, yes, the speed and the fact that, the market is, so big and people are acting on, things is both good and it can be a challenge. So if you find yourself in trouble, you are going to get a lot of heat for it. Sometimes it's short-lived. Sometimes it basically destroys the brand. An example could be Dolce & Gabbana. Many of us probably have heard that scandal. The brand has not recovered. Just recently, there was a Hong Kong singer and model who actually wore Dolce & Gabbana outfit for a photo shoot, and she got so much online negativity for it. But at the same time, this Xinjiang Cotton Initiative scandal, Nike and Adidas, they also got a bit of heat online by being on the list. But ultimately, during this 6/18 performance, they are also top of their categories on both JD and Alibaba. So to be honest, these are, well, first of all, they knew how to handle it better, right? They didn't take it to that extent. But also, when it generally comes to the product and brand, if you have a strong brand, if you have a great product, customers are still in China voting with their dollars, with their wallets, and they are choosing the best quality and the strongest brands.
I spent a lot of time here. We spent a lot of time here trying to figure out the COVID era of retail and the COVID era of society, about how the past 18 months, and we're not really out of it yet, the next 6 months, but let's call it the COVID era, has impacted businesses and trying to understand how it impacted consumers. When I think of COVID era in China, I think of it as much shorter and much briefer, because while it kind of started in China, it wrapped up much quicker. I'm not sure it had the same impact on consumer behavior that we're kind of expecting here. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say it was shorter for sure, but it was also a lot more intense. Nobody knew what that was. Nobody before China actually locked the whole city of many million people and virtually shut down the whole country. So it was really scary. And people here, don't forget, have had experience with SARS.
Yeah, sure.
And that was a much more violent virus. And people still remember that because it wasn't so long ago. So did it change? Do you think, and it's a bit of an unfair question because we're still trying to figure it out here, takes a few hours, 10,000 hours, few weeks to change consumer behavior. Do you think anything has changed? You mentioned earlier that you thought we're now, I don't think you used the word accelerated, but it sounds like parts of the COVID era also accelerated behaviors and phenomenon in China. Would you? Oh, absolutely.
Would you say that's,
it has accelerated so many things, and it has changed consumer attitudes and behaviors. For example, when it comes to older consumers, silverhead generation in China, they were not really fond of shopping online. But when it comes to groceries, in China, traditionally, you go to the small market nearby and then you pick all the veggies. And very often these older people used to go to supermarkets and open marketplaces twice a day because they wanted the freshest, the best, etc. So right now, everybody orders on group buying, fresh e-commerce platforms. And you get fresh stuff and you can get it basically any time of the day. And this has changed significantly. People became even more cautious and conscious about your own health and, the society, and mental health right now is a big topic. And in general, this kind of midnight consumption, we call it our year. So when you are basically staying up late post 12 and then you browse internet and you purchase things just because you're kind of tired, or you buy this cream that makes you look better in the morning because
you're not getting enough sleep.
Exactly, because you were not getting enough sleep consistently. So that behavior has definitely accelerated, and China started building 24-hour cities because of that. So consumers get off work later, consumers stay up later, and that is why 24-hour cities, for example, Changsha is one such city, or Beijing is building itself into that. You have places, for instance, in Changsha that close at 3 o'clock in the morning. So the whole shebang, restaurants, shops, even government departments are open until 3 a.m. And then, consumers can basically participate in it, not just once a week, but consistently on ongoing basis. So it's something very, very interesting. And of course, when it comes to especially young people, they were affected a lot. Many of them had to go through a very stressful experience. They're still in college. They didn't know. So what am I going to do as I graduate? What is the future going to look like? And Chinese consumers, and generally China is extremely optimistic market. It is an extremely positive. Why? Because in the past 30 years, people have seen unprecedented change in the country. And they believe that their life is not just going to be a little bit better than their parents' life, but it's going to be a lot better. So there is this index, which is called Lived Change Index, which measures in the past 30 years how much change has the country and its people gone through. And for example, in India, it's if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 6, somewhere in between there times, right? So in the US, it's also around let's say 4 or 3, but China is 33 times. It's the highest in the world by far. So you believe that your life is going to be in just 30 years, 33 times better than your parents, because this is the speed with which country has developed. And of course, with this COVID-19, people were like, oh my God, I'm not really sure, is my life going to be better? And that's where mental health comes into question. People started talking about it. And of course, people in the South, the one that I mentioned earlier, is usually a bit more developed part of the country, a bit more prosperous economically, has a different mentality. So these people also have recovered faster, and they started engaging in revenge consumption, right? Pampering yourself up. You cannot travel. So let's spend the same amount of money that I used to travel around the world and purchase and, engage in all these fun activities, but let's spend them locally. Let's purchase more luxury goods. Let's really pamper ourselves, use some services, etc. But people in the North, they felt very different. They felt that, oh my God, I need to save a bit more because I'm not sure what's going to happen in the next half a year. So all that right now is more or less balancing out. Up until very recently, China didn't have any major breakouts. But right now, there's
one in the South right now, I believe.
Right. In the South, there's a breakout, and people are right now running towards vaccination. And we actually just now, I think it was announced, administered 1 billion doses of vaccines already.
Wow.
And so hopefully we're going to bring it under control again.
Let's talk about festivals. And I think it's commonly known here when we talk about Singles Day, in November. That's quite well known. But many of the other festivals are less well known. I think you just wrapped up 618 as one of the examples. 7 or 8 different festivals. Talk about how that shapes the retail experience. Are these big drivers that are the big focus, and everyone builds up to them? Like, I guess I want to know if consumers hold off buying in advance of the festivals and they really kind of shape the retail landscape, or are they just like, an Amazon Prime Day, or like here in Canada, the Bay Days, like they're just an event? Give me a sense of scale and importance of these festivals.
Absolutely. So things have changed significantly in the past 2 years. Previously, people would really look for 11/11, and 11/11 is still the biggest and most important one, right? When you actually put together a list of products that you, for example, you want a GoPro camera, and you want a, let's say, Piaget watch, and you want a stationery supplies for the whole year, you would actually put a list of things that you want. And especially if these are slightly more expensive things, you would definitely put them on your wish list, and sometimes you will pre-order them. And the moment 12 o'clock, basically midnight hits, you are there online clicking submit your order to really get things moving. This being said, in the past 2 years, things have changed significantly. The first change is that right now, definitely a lot more platforms are participating in it. The competition is fierce. At the same time, we have a lot more shopping festivals throughout the year that became big and important for each particular category. At the same time, with these festivals, people are feeling a bit fatigued. Like basically in China right now, we have Double Five, which is a new festival. So it's happening on May 5th, and then 6/18, and then Double 11, and we have Double 12, and then we have Chinese New Year, and then we have Mother's Day. And Mother's Day is all about basically women's kind of festival. And then we have 1st of May, and it's just nonstop.
From the team that has taken thought leadership and community for retail marketers and direct-to-consumer brands to the next level with their Commerce Next conference series, get ready for Season 1 of the Conversations with Commerce Next podcast. Hosted by veteran retail e-commerce marketer and podcaster Michael LeBlanc, with co-hosts Veronica Sansev and Scott Silverman, and presented by Wonderkin, Conversations with Commerce Next gives voice to the e-commerce and digital marketing community like never before. You'll hear thought leadership with one-to-one interviews that will dive deep into marketing challenges, winning digital strategies, the latest research, technologies, and people behind one of the most dynamic industries in the world. Together we'll work to make sure as we emerge from the COVID era that you're ready to take on the new challenges and opportunities and help you thrive with insights and advice from industry leaders who have hands-on experience that you need to hear. Available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, all the major platforms where you enjoy your podcast today, with new episodes debuting every 2 weeks. You need a vacation from the festivals.
Absolutely. And over the years, in order for you to get those discounts, it also became extremely complicated. So people are constantly complaining about the complexity. Like, I want to get a discount, but it's not just a discount. You need to, I do not know, like in previous years, you need to hunt for cats, right, on Tmall. You need to walk around town and, scan QR codes. Or you need to play mini games with your friends. You need to do so many different, we call it, like the actions, right, that you take in order to activate your discount. So sometimes people felt that, the benefit that you're getting versus the effort that you're putting in, do they really, balance out? For 11/11, the answer is still yes, and people want to do it. It's the biggest. It's also not just about shopping festival. It's a sharp contrast compared to what we have, as you said, with Amazon Prime Day, etc. Because it is a huge gala. It is a celebration. It's really, really, I would say, a national level, not just event. It's a festival, and that's the second thing that changed from one day, which is 24 hours, and yes, a bit of pre-sale and kind of post-sale. Right now, it's a festival, which means it starts on the 1st of November and it finishes on the 11th. And not only Jingdong has it so long, but also for the first time ever last year, Alibaba extended it from 1st to 11th. So right now, it's a true festival, multiple platforms, multiple days, tons of events online and offline, and it's basically crazy, and that is why it's so successful. And most of the brands, a lot of, let's say, international brands in China, they make easily 50 to 70% of their turnover a year in China on this one day.
I was going to say, it must be for your clients and for others a years of preparation that goes into an event of that scale and scope, particularly now that it sounds like it's imbued itself right into the culture. So it's not a shopping day. It's as you said, it's a celebration. I guess it's close to like a Thanksgiving or a Black Friday would probably be, I guess, its closest analogy. Yeah,
absolutely. And then, of course, there's 6/18, much smaller scale. But for some categories, it still works quite well. There are, as I said, Women's Day, there is this CNY, etc. So brands right now, they are choosing. Very few brands are participating in all of those events because it's very expensive budget-wise. You need to advertise both inside the platform and outside the platform. You need to create a lot of content. You need to also provide benefits and discounts and gifts and the unique packaging. And so it's a lot of activation. Super big brands, of course, they participate in almost everything. If you're Huawei or Apple, well, Apple maybe not in everything, but if you are essentially somebody who really cannot miss this opportunity, you are everywhere. But for most brands, they select 1, maximum 2 festivals to really focus on. And they are working, they are good, especially for 11/11, there's always this halo effect, which means after you complete this grand promotion, you essentially get a lot of attention, you get a lot of sales, online, offline, coming in because people basically saw you, like you, want more of you.
Interesting. Let's talk about another I'll call it a phenomenon, but you may just call it regular day-to-day business that is maybe coming here not as fast as we thought maybe it is, and that's live streaming and shopping on live stream. So I actually worked for the QVC equivalent in Canada. So I did 24-hour television, which is kind of old school OG live streaming for many, many years. I understand that live streaming is very popular, a very good sales tactic. Do you think it can transfer over to North America, or is there something different inherently in the Asian market that makes it so popular? I mean, obviously a digital first culture, obviously more advanced in terms of e-commerce, in terms of penetration and all those things. Do you think there's a crossover potential for live stream shopping?
Well, I think when it comes to live streaming, this is the future of retail. Ultimately, static retail, static pages, like what we have on Amazon and what we have also to a large extent in China as well and everywhere else in the world, while they still drive a lot of traffic and generate a lot of sales, people, at least in China and also in many other markets here in Southeast Asia, where this is right now being rolled out and implemented, they prefer to go to a page of the product after they read the description, and they prefer to see demonstration, especially, for example, this product is on body, something that you put on like a dress. How does it look? What is the feature, etc. So
does it need to be live, or can that be like that's the distinction I feel? Yeah, it's live, right?
It's live. You ask questions. You remember back in the 90s, at least my impression is in the US, there were also those channels, I'm sure they exist still, where they demonstrate, a frying pan for
the QVC, the QVCs of the world. I used to work for one. That's the one I used to work for. It was fantastic. It was live, 18 hours a day, 364. It was, and it feels like that's been around for a long time, but it hasn't really translated here yet onto mobile devices, and it's still a niche. It's still a niche.
But so many people watched it. Why did they watch? Because it was, demonstrated, and then you could also. I think that interactive kind of feature was lacking, but you still, in some places, you could send an SMS later in the day, right? Sure. And then your comment would appear on the screen or something like that. So there were some of the features, and people were still watching it, and a lot of businesses were built based on QVCs. So that is just the next step, but it has a different focus. When it comes to live streaming, people, the live streamers tend to entertain and explain you the features and sell all at the same time.
Right. So it's an art. It's a real art and science, right? It is an art and science.
And right now, the most popular trainings in China, when it comes to anybody working in marketing and e-commerce, and anybody who is a salesperson, is how to live stream, how to be better at, dropping those phrases, building this connection instantly, how to introduce any product effectively, etc. These live streaming features of different platforms, etc., extremely, extremely important to understand them. And I do believe that this is the future of retail. Static retail is slowly and gradually going to, become less relevant. Also, China is. Obviously, right now, a lot of cities are already 5G coverage, so internet is not an issue.
Right.
People do not really, a lot of people don't own laptops and don't use it for entertainment. They use their phones, so everybody's on the phone. China is already working on 6G. It started basically working on it already a year and a half ago. When they launched 5G, they started working on the next generation.
And payment is better integrated into mobile devices. I think that's a big piece of it, right? That kind of these big super apps, right, where it all exists in one place. So payment, click and buy is much, it feels much, or there's much less friction for the China consumer.
Absolutely. And right now you have WeChat Pay, you have Alipay, you have many other payment options. And of course, China has already launched digital RMB. So right now this digital RMB is going to be introduced across all platforms. So previously when you were within Alibaba ecosystem, you would say, we do not accept, let's say, WeChat payments. So that you would use Alipay to pay within Alibaba. Right now, with this digital RMB, basically the government says, you know what, everybody's going to accept RMB. Everybody's going to accept digital RMB. So it will allow even the people that might not have had those wallets, even though most people in the cities have had them and used them on a daily basis multiple times. But basically, and of course, this payment, face scan payments. And for kids, we have these little tokens like watch right? It's like watches that you wear, and then you can just use them to pay for stuff, and parents are pre-approving certain transactions. It's incredible what's happening in the market and how it all comes together. And live streaming is just one element of that. And there will be a lot more. There will be holographic projections. We already see 3D LED screens when it comes to online, offline integration. We have QR codes, culture, of course, that is also not, very broadly used in North America. But can it spill over onto North America? I think it will at one point. Something live, be it live streaming or any other form of live interaction between the creator and the product, it's already happening. People are already, more interested. There's a lot of bloggers, there's a lot of blogger-created brands, etc. But probably it's going to happen in a different format and in a different, kind of shape.
Well, last question for you. You've been very generous with your time. Thanks so much. I've learned so much. What do people typically get wrong about doing business or doing retail in China? Like, what is the top things that you say, you're maybe like myself, right? Everything's right, everything's potentially wrong. But what are the top things that most commonly people get wrong?
Well, I would say people still, they assume a lot. Maybe they know, actually right now, a lot of people know that China is a big market, an exciting market, and that this is a different market. But still, very often, the information about the market comes from, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or some years ago. And China changes so fast. So when you truly go into China to work, to enter, to build a brand, assume nothing. And this is very, very hard for a lot of brands to do. And when I say assume nothing, it means do not bring your foreign KPIs or benchmark or models or bestseller product lines in China and think that this is going to work. Go into the market humble with a lot of cash. It's an expensive market. The potential is also huge. Focus on building a brand, because in China, people do not search for products. People search for brands only. And if you don't have a brand, if people don't know about you, they're not going to search it on e-commerce platforms. And yes, give it time. You're not going to break even and make money in China if it comes to e-commerce unless you are some super popular brand that was just not activated in mainland before, and people are struggling to purchase this product. Even that is not possible, because in China there are so many platforms that allow you to purchase from overseas, etc. You're not going to break even in the first year, so plan 18 months to 24 months. And have fun with it. And also remember that what you're learning in China is likely going to be the future of global commerce. So you're not just, China is not just taking you to school for China. They're also showing you how will e-commerce and retail and new retail emerge, likely, at least in the most populous part of the world, such as, Southeast Asia, let's say Africa, the Middle East, and, putting all that together, that's 70% of global consumers, if you, Latin America, etc. So in Europe and North America, things can evolve differently because of a variety of reasons. They feel that they already developed markets. They feel that they have legacy ecosystems. The people are generally a lot less willing to change. There's privacy concerns and many, many, many other things. But a lot of other markets outside of these two big ones are actually 70% of global consumers. And that's where a lot of models that are working in China are likely going to also be successful.
Well, Ashley, you've given us both a sense of the contemporary market that is China and also a glimpse into the future. So thank you so much. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed our conversation. And the listeners will get to hear you again coming up this September. You're going to be on the virtual stage for Retail Council of Canada's store conference. So I look forward to seeing you virtually again. But for now, thanks so much for joining me on the Voice of Retail podcast. It's been a real treat, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was a huge pleasure. And as you said, if you want to see the future, go to China. Right now, with COVID restrictions, it might be a bit more difficult.
Yeah, call you. Next best thing, the best thing, just call you. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Voice of Retail. Be sure and follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy podcasts, so you don't miss out on the latest episodes, industry news, and insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating review. as it really helps us grow so that we continue to get amazing guests onto the show. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of Emmy LeBlanc Company, Inc., and if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at emmyleblanc.co. Until next time, stay safe, have a great week.